Alexa, what's my notification?
You want me to drive? Just watch out for red coats. Where are you going? Who are you talking to? What are you doing?
Oh.
Where are you going? I don't know. I've got a letter from Vegas. Only read twice. I was going to the swamp to revel in the flag. How about having coffee in a Met tent? I'm Mike. Sure, Mark.
Hello.
Hi. Are you signing into the CPC meeting?
I am.
Good.
I am Nori. I'm the library director.
Yes. Hi, I'm Nancy Cantelmo, one of the members of the committee. So people will be joining us slowly, a little early.
All right. Should I have my video on? I'm not sure.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
We'll get smaller and smaller as more people join.
Right.
How are things going over there?
It's really nice. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. What do you do, Nancy?
So actually I met you when you came to the La Liberté exhibit. So
Oh, you're at the Historical
yeah,
Society.
I'm president of the Historical Society. So I was there that day when
Oh, wow, huh?
when you guys came.
Hmm.
But I'm also on the Open Space Committee,
Just put on the bed.
which is
Thank
why
you.
I'm on their representative to this committee.
Which one's the heavy one?
None of them.
What's that one?
My wallet.
What wallet?
The wallet that I got myself for Christmas because my wallet is officially broken.
Oh,
I'm missing a great conversation.
We don't know where it's coming from.
Oh, Nora, it's nice to meet you.
Hi.
Thank you for coming to our meeting. We'll wait for a quorum, but glad to see you, Barbara, Nancy, Dave Wilson.
I loved hearing that in the background. There was a, on MSNBC last night, they had an expert on, and his probably, I don't know, 6 or 7-year-old daughter was behind him, behind the chair, making faces, doing stuff like that, right? I mean, all on TV. Right?
Oh, wow.
And the camera people kept trying to maybe try and pull something else up, hoping she would go away, and she didn't.
Oh, that's great.
It was perfect. It's like having your cat walk back and forth, right? Only
Yeah.
just much more active.
Got it. Got it. Oh, good. We're getting folks coming to our meeting.
Nancy, those swags are beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so happy with them. They're beautiful.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your support.
Okay. Good. We've got folks coming in. By the way, Trish, wonderful concert. Can you hear me?
I think she's just connecting.
She's just connecting.
Did you go Sunday, Lynn?
We did, yes. We went
Okay.
last night.
I
Yeah.
went Saturday, so
There's a lot of noise in the background. Is that
that's Dave Wilson, I think.
Oh, it
Dave?
is? Yeah.
Dave, are you cleaning your office or something?
No, I just got some parts for my Jeep.
Oh, okay. He's
Sorry about
unwrapping
that.
his parts.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh,
That's
sorry
great.
about that.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, it's just 7:01. That we'll get this started just with some slow introductions, and we'll let some other folks sort of come into the meeting, we hope. But I'm Lynn Spencer. I am privileged to be the chairman of Nahant's Community Preservation Committee. And with me tonight are several members of the committee. Nancy Catalmo. Nancy, why don't you just each of you, as I call you out, would you just call out what group you're representing? So we'll start with you, Nancy.
Sure. So I am the representative to the Community Preservation Committee from the Open Space and Recreation Committee.
Right. Wonderful. And let's see, Austin.
Hello, Lynn. Austin Antrim, member at large.
Okay. And Paul, we're just doing introductions.
Sure.
So you're up next.
Well, all I can remember is what Austin just said, except my name isn't Austin. I'm Paul Spurn, and I too am a committee member at large.
Okay. Great. Let's see. Next, we'll move on to Dave Wilson.
Hi, Dave Wilson, Nahant Housing Authority.
Okay. And so far, I don't see any other committee members. As I am chair, but I also represent the Historical Commission. And with us is also as well is Barbara Beatty, who is the representative from FinCom, who attends our meetings.
I think
So-
Ellen is here, isn't she?
I don't see her so far.
Oh, okay. I see her name with a line through
Yeah.
her microphone.
Is that Ellen Goldberg?
I don't know. It's an Ellen.
I know. I'm asking now, Paul. So whoever that Ellen is, I don't think it's our Ellen.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay. So we are here tonight for the public meeting for community preservation. I'll talk a little bit about how community preservation works and its history in Nahant. and then we'll go on to the specifics of this year's grant round. But Nahant approved community preservation in 2004 at the town meeting as a 3% community. So what that means is, and the way community preservation works, is that this is a percentage on the real estate tax surcharge. That percentage is then matched by the state. In the early years, they were matching at the full 100, it was 100% match. So, and the state revenues for community preservation are generated by real estate transaction fees. So in strong years on real estate, activity, there would be, high matches. On slower years, and we happen to be experiencing that now, the match is likely to be lower. Nahant has never gone below 55% match and has typically been in the 70% range on average. And remember, that's over the period of now nearly 20 years of community preservation activity in Nahant. Community preservation funds can be used in 3 buckets, and one of them is open space and recreation. The other is affordable housing, and the third is historic preservation. 10% of the funds generated every year have to go to those specific activities. If there's no activity in a year, it gets banked and it accumulates over time. The balance, 70% of the money, can then be allocated as the committee recommends, as the committee evaluates grant applications and makes recommendations to the town meeting. And it is ultimately the town meeting that approves the grant recommendations. We have a process where we have an application process. We review the applications, we evaluate them, we spend time with our applicants, and then it goes on to FinCom for their review. And as I said, ultimately to the town meeting. So in a given year, we have approximately $550,000. The real estate tax surcharge is matched by the state. And so that's the kind of pool, the financial pool that we work with. The grant process is now beginning. We will have the grants available online in a fillable form, which is going to be easier than it has been in the past. Ooh, I see a response from one of the applicants saying that's a good idea. So Nancy Catamo and Ellen Goldberg, who was not able to join us tonight, have been working with Tony at Town Hall and the town's webmaster to make that work. So that will be a real improvement. This year, grants will be due on January 16th. That's a Tuesday, the day after Martin Luther King Day. And we are anxiously encouraging applications. Applications can be made by nonprofits in the town. They can be made by municipal applicants. And in rare cases, we haven't had this happen in Nahant. Private individuals have been able to make applications to community preservation in exchange for a preservation restriction on the subject property. So that's kind of the general picture. Committee members, all of you have served a very long time. If I have left anything out that you want to sort of pop in and add, please do so.
Well, sometimes applications require the estimate of contractor expenses. And we found that some contractors are unwilling to give any kind of details without feeling that they're going to get some compensation for their time. So applicants, whether their proposal is eventually accepted or not, can apply for small grants to offset any charges that professionals or contractors might expect to contribute to the proposal.
Thank you, Paul. And let's not limit that to contractors. We've had
That's right.
architects and engineers be involved with this. So
Yeah.
far, nobody has ever applied to us for these
No,
small
that's true.
grants,
That's true.
but this is certainly something available that is available. I had mentioned that we also spend time with our applicants once we receive grants so that we bring them into a meeting, really go through the applications, sometimes make adjustments in the request, oftentimes upwards, because we want to make sure that an application has the ability to succeed. Over a period of time, we then actually are involved with monitoring the implementation of projects, working with Tony at Town Hall and Zach Taylor, for instance, at the DPW. The Open Space Committee has been very active in the last couple of years, and that's been a real pleasure. So we view this as a collaborative process, one that we really want applicants to understand, to have gained a greater understanding of their grants and their project goals, and then to succeed with them. So this is a time, I see several people on the camera today, including one of our selectmen. But this is a time for folks to raise questions. I do see a hand up. I don't know if it's my cursor or, yeah, no, that was my cursor. But if people want to sing out, please raise a hand or start a conversation.
Lynn, if
This is stunned silence. I can't stand silence.
Lynn, if somebody's filling out an application and runs into a problem, who do they call? How do they ask for help?
They can reach out to, oh goodness, I see a hand up. They can reach out to Tony at Town Hall, who will refer them to one of us. It's usually comes to me. I did see a hand up from, was it Michelle Capano? No, I see a hand up from Josh Antrim. Or is that just one of these mysterious things?
The wrong way. Am I unmuted now?
You are speaking. You're with us.
All right. This question's really for from Ellen, who's suffering with laryngitis right now. She's wondering about, for smaller applications, what's the best method to request RFPs for a small job? So if you have a bit of a landscaping or whatever it is, how would a small group initiate an RFP?
So let me just sort of untangle this a little bit. When you say an RFP, that which is a request for proposals.
Really more like a bid, request for.
Okay. So you want to
yeah.
figure out how to generate a cost estimate for that would be the basis of the grant application. Is that what you're saying? Is that the question?
Yes.
And you need some help on that. So if we understood the nature of the application, we could actually connect you with somebody who is able to help with that cost estimate. Or as Paul was just describing, we can offer a small grant, to help with the actual preparation of the preparation, the definition of the scope and the budget estimate. I still see your hand up, Josh, so I bet that's not really answering the question.
Sorry, I forgot to lower my hand, but is there like or should we consider an approved list of vendors or?
I think it depends. I think it depends on the project. So, if this is an engineering project involving a seawall, then that's, that's connecting with an engineer who's capable of providing an estimate.
Yep.
I mean, could you
I think,
could we describe
Ellen
the
will
project?
follow up with you later. We don't want to hijack the meeting, sorry.
Well, this is what this meeting is for, but sure, she can follow up and say, give me an idea, give an idea. If you simply can send an email to me, and if I can't answer it, then I will sort of pass it along to somebody who can. But I think we do have resources in terms of engineers, architects, landscape architects, and contractors. At this level, especially with a municipal project, it's a budget estimate. So it's not a bid, it is a budget estimate, because then the project will have to go through the usual procurement process. Trish, you're on right now, and I know that you have something in mind, and this might be, your project might give us an example for the others to benefit from. But you need to get your sound on.
Not yet.
She will.
Well, she doesn't, the microphone isn't pictured with a strike through it. So her computer thinks it's working. But it isn't.
Oh,
Can't hear
darn.
you.
I think she's going out and coming back in.
Okay.
Right.
How about anyone else? Nori?
Yeah, can I ask a question?
You sure can.
And I'm new, so I'm sorry if this is like, the wrong question.
There's no wrong, there's no wrong question. There's just a question.
I'm the new library director, and this whole thing
Oh,
is new. Hi. Yeah, I
well,
just
it's great.
started a couple months ago. Hi.
Well, welcome. We're very glad to have you here.
Oh, hi. Oh, Trish is back. Maybe we can hear her now. Can we hear Trish? No,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, Nori, you get
The other
to,
thing you can do, Trish, is you can
Okay.
call and use the telephone audio.
Oh. I didn't want to take away her question time. Okay, I'm gonna ask my question.
Go ahead.
okay, go ahead.
Obviously I still have a lot to learn, and maybe this isn't the right time for me to write a grant in a few weeks before January, but I wanted to learn about this committee and the grant, and just learn as much as I could. But one of the things that the library I think desperately needs is an HVAC system. Because in the library is really beautiful, amazing historic material that's stored in an attic. And I'm really worried that at some point a storm or something's going to happen, or, just the humidity is going to destroy it. So I was wondering if this was the kind of grant that the library could write or do something with to get HVAC in the building to protect and help preserve stuff that we already have. Or is that not, would that not count toward historic preservation?
That is a tricky question, because there's criteria that we have to work with. I think in general, I have seen this kind of project happen statewide when it's part of a preservation project. So you probably are aware, Nori, that the library has had several major projects dealing with the building envelope over the last couple of years, which has been funded by community preservation.
Mhm.
And I think if we could think about a way of packaging the HVAC project with continuing preservation work in the building, it would be quite logical. So I believe, for instance, that you still have some pending exterior work that
So
Richard Smith, your architect, has in mind.
Yeah. So there were two phases that are done, that are complete. And
Yeah.
then there's a third envelope project that hasn't been addressed yet at all. and in that third part, there's all I see on the on all the details for it is HVAC question mark several times. So I think he and people have wanted to address it, but haven't really figured out the how. So I guess that's what I want to do. Because we do have really amazing stuff in there that I'm worried about. I don't want the temperature or humidity to be the reason we lose something in this library.
Yeah, yeah. So we have this thing where we cannot do a project that is normally termed maintenance. What we have to do is to do something that is really considered part of a rehabilitation or a preservation project. So turn to your architect and to your trustees and see if there's anything else that is building, that is like building, not just building systems, but building preservation related that could be tied to this package.
Okay.
I think you do have cost estimates from the master plan, which we helped fund a couple of years ago. Those should probably be updated as well.
Okay.
Does that ring a bell at all?
Yeah, I have lots of material
Yeah,
on the
I know you
building.
do. I know you do.
Um,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was just something I wanted. I guess I wanted your opinion on.
Oh, I think it's an important part of the preservation of the library and the contents of the library. So don't mistake what I'm saying. I'm just saying there's a way of packaging this.
Okay.
For example, it would be a little harder if you already had an HVAC system in there.
That's
that
right.
was falling apart and needed to be updated. It's more of a stretch under those circumstances. I don't think it's a very long stretch at all to say that we have a historic property itself that is in danger of degradation if it does not get updating in several ways. And we've spent a ton of money, as you know, on the library envelope to keep the water out. And now water's inside, and we need to keep it from building up. So
Yeah.
I don't think that's as Lynn was saying, it should be and properly is addressed as a preservation issue, I think.
But I
Okay.
think it would be better to also tie it to some other preservation work that
Sure.
needs to be done.
Sure.
You know what happens, Nora? We keep seeing grants over and over again, and we really would like to tie a bow on this one.
Okay.
But we can, I don't know if you're aware, there was a building committee
Mhm.
in addition to the trustees. And I was lucky enough to be on that building committee. So I think if you want to reconvene the building committee, that probably would be a good idea.
Okay. Well, thank you. I feel like this has been very educational.
Okay. All right. Very good. Do we have you on, Trish?
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, loud and
Alright.
clear.
It's
I
your
apologize.
meeting
I
now.
thought I had straightened all that out, but apparently not.
Anyway.
Okay, so the Open Space Committee would like to submit a proposal for work to be done at Bailey's Hill in the Fort Ruckman area. We've started some work there already and we want to continue it. Basically, that area has been neglected for decades and decades. So we're now making inroads to make some improvements there. So we would like to submit a proposal to hire an ecological restoration professional to develop a plan for cleaning up that area. We imagine it would include removing some of the invasive tree species, the black locusts and the Norway maples and some dead trees. probably removing vines that are suffocating a lot of the plant life, and planting some native trees and shrubs. We developed a restoration and management plan for Lodge Park, and now we're working on implementing that. And we basically want to develop a plan using the Lodge Park plan sort of as a model, develop a plan now for this part of Bailey's Hill. We did have a site visit scheduled today with Miles Connor from Parterre Ecological, who's the president of the company that did the recent plantings at Bailey's Hill, where they planted the native plants and shrubs and one tree. So we were going to do a site visit today with him and walk that part of Bailey's Hill and just discuss things and kind of get on the same page, but he was under the weather, and so we had to reschedule it, which we have done, and the new date is Wednesday, December 13th at 8 a.m. at Bailey's Hill. So we'll get that part of the project rolling so that we will be able to submit a grant proposal in time for the deadline.
Okay. So this is helpful to hear because we funded the Lodge Park Master Plan, and that was a very thorough and thoughtful document. So would you be thinking that a company like Parterre would be submitting a proposal for Bailey's Hill, or are you simply using them to do the budget estimate and then going out for a competitive process?
They're very capable of doing the work that we envision. That's what they're really all about.
Yeah.
So I guess we'd see how it comes. And let's see, we're also very happy working with them, and the DPW is very happy working with them and has a good relationship. So I guess we'd sort of see how it all plays out. This is a much smaller project than the Lodge Park project. It's not a comprehensive restoration and management plan. It's more biting off a little chunk of Bailey's Hill and coming up with a native plant restoration plan for that area.
Now, is this the part that you would call the bunker portion of Bailey's Hill?
It's the part where we've already done some of the work, where the plantings are, and the DPW cleared off an area and leveled it and built the wall. It's that section with the benches on top as well. Yeah.
Oh, so you're just doing
that. Nancy, maybe you can describe which section it is better than I am. It's not the one the farthest out that sticks out near the harbor.
No, I'm talking about the portion that is actually a bunker, which is that really runs the whole spine, the spine of that.
Yes.
And that's where there's an amazing grove of black locusts.
Yes.
Yeah. And there's some pretty amazing bittersweet the size of my arm.
Exactly.
One of the interesting things about the comparison of the two hills, one is kind of north and one's kind of south, but the one with Fort Ruckman is sort of the northern one. That side, if you look at it, has 0 conifers, evergreens on it. The other side is more mixture with more evergreens. So we certainly want to get rid of the invasives, which Tricia has mentioned, but we want to put a mixed planting, but including evergreens on that side of the hill.
Okay. We all know what a beautiful cloud of white flowers happens when those black locusts bloom, right? Just saying. Just saying.
Well, they won't all go away.
Okay. All right. So this is really for a segment of the overall Bailey's Hill Reserve, let's call it that.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And with it, because I know that you did signage, for instance, in the area that you're working on, but I think that with this, there, I believe, should be some public education about what's happening, because this would be, you know, a significant change. So I would encourage you to think about
Okay.
that as part of the application process.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Other committee members with observations or comments on what Tricia's offered so far? Okay. All right. Other members of the public who are on the call with questions or comments or hands raised? All right, because I'm just one of the, oh, I was about to say, because I'm one of those people who can never leave well enough alone. I'd like to talk about affordable housing. And I just think I saw Michelle Capano on with her hands raised. Michelle, are you
And
there?
thank you.
Yes,
My
good.
question is not affordable housing related.
Oh,
In
okay.
terms of, continuing participation, will you be having more of these public meetings between now and the closure date for the applications?
Well, normally, Michelle, we have just one meeting. If we feel that there are reasons to have another meeting, as a midpoint review, we certainly can do that.
Okay.
What I was about to say is that the town meeting, with the recommendation from this committee, has funded what's called the Housing Production Plan. And that plan is nearing its conclusion. Michelle, as the chairman of that committee, could you just comment about where it stands?
Sure. So, it's been a little bit more than a year since the committee has been installed. We have published a draft of the plan. It's available on nahant.org, and it's been with the stakeholders of the Board of Selectmen in the Planning Board for their review. We were scheduled to have a joint meeting to vote to adopt and send to the state. We decided to pull back that meeting as we've received, since we published the draft report, various questions from the public and our stakeholders regarding the plan. So we've, over the last, whatever we are now, December, 3.5, almost 4 weeks, have been going through addressing the questions in the feedback. We have made some modifications to the draft plan. We recently had a meeting with MAPC. We are going to extend the timeline on this portion of the project. So
I'm sorry, could you just tell us who MAPC is?
Sure. MAPC is the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. They are an organization funded through the Office of Livable Community, the Environmental Office of Livable Communities, the state. And they've been just think of them as internal consultants for the state. And we've engaged them to help us put together this housing plan. And the housing plan is, as you would expect it, it's a strategic document that just informs the state our opportunities and potential, say, thinking on how to address the affordable housing crisis in Massachusetts. I know it's a hot topic. It's been mentioned and talked about in so many different forums, not just in the town of Nahant, but in the state and nationally. So, you know, we're a very small community. We are limited by obviously our land size being 1 square mile, but we can contribute in some way to creating more affordable housing. We have some great data around the housing needs for our community. Just in Nahant, the need for creating affordable housing and what that means to help others. I think the other piece is the strategic piece around creating opportunities of housing to assist people at different stages of their life. So people who want to age in place and sell their big home and still live in their community. It's an opportunity to allow to increase housing for first-time home buyers, as well as new families that can come into the town. So it's not always about low-income housing or subsidized housing. It's a much broader strategy and topic around creating housing opportunities broadly for different categories of incomes and for people in different stages of their life. So as it pertains to the plan, we have some great feedback that we're incorporating right now, taking some time to go through it. We are making some changes based on some of those recommendations. And hopefully by the end of the month, we'll have a red line copy to turn over to MAPC so they can finalize. And then early next year, a revised document that we'll put forward before the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board.
Thank you, Michelle. I have to say, I've seen you in action, and this has been a very hardworking committee led by a very hardworking chairman who leaves no stone unturned, I will say. So we expect that we will be seeing applications related to this plan. We encourage that. The amount of money that we have to spend is not huge. I think Michelle, I don't know if you were in when at the beginning of this meeting, but on average, we have $550,000 a year to give out. 10% of that goes to affordable housing at minimum. So what, $55,000? It's not a lot. But I think it is, overall, if I think about the priorities that this committee has been dealing with over the years, affordable housing has been the least served of the three categories of activity of open space, historic preservation. They've gotten, sizable grants over time. But our housing, while we've worked with the Housing Authority, taking care of some of their properties, the idea of creating new housing opportunities is extremely exciting. And it's something that we as a group would encourage creative applications. That giving this grant for the housing production plan was an important first step, but there will be more to come. I also should have mentioned that we do have some accumulated income in our reserve, so in addition to the $550,000 a year, which, then has to be parceled out, we have a reserve of about $170,000. Nancy, I see that you were just raising your hand.
Yes. So the MAPC is a cool organization. They helped us write the open space plan, and they just know a lot about how to navigate a lot of topics and help out. So I understand, how we funded the plan, but can you help me understand what other kinds of possible grants would people submit to our committee about affordable housing?
So, Lynn, can I just jump in?
Oh, you sure can. I bet you're much better at this than I am. But
one of the things we've been talking about as committee is to submit a grant for design guidelines. Once we understand and take our opportunity sites and kind of shortlist that, we'd like to come up with a set of design guidelines that we can put in front of developers to say, agnostic of location, here's what a set of design guidelines we would like for the community. So things relative to, if I get into the kind of the detail of the construction, how high we want buildings to be, how many square footage we want 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments to be, how they need to be outfitted to accomplish ADA requirements. Certainly the facade of the buildings we want, we may not want all brick and stone. We may want a combination of shingle and stone, and depending on location and weatherization and that stuff. So there are those things that we want to make sure we have documented. So when we put something in front of a developer and they look at a particular location, they can take those design guidelines and use that as their first baseline of developing what their cost estimates are going to be. And then we can work with the developer to further refine based on the location and how big that location can accomplish the number of units, say we want to do for a project. Now, all these are dependent on whether the project is subsidized housing or is some type of affordable housing, say 55 and or plus, or first-time home buyers. But the design guidelines should be agnostic, because regardless of what the project is, we want to understand what we can build that makes sense to the community. So that's one aspect of it.
And I would just sort of chime in, because in fact, in the past, we did fund design guidelines for what is now known as the Coast Guard housing. So when we went through that whole process years ago, we actually did provide design guidelines that were quite specific in terms of setback materials and so on, that were the basis of the RFP process that was conducted in 2008. That kind of thinking, I think, will help really with the specific sites that are being considered today, which of course have, many people very concerned. What's going to happen here? The design guidelines can be an instrument in truly defining that process.
So Lynn, I have a question, and I don't know whether it's something the committee can answer. And I don't expect the committee to answer it today. I think this may be required further conversation and debate with the committee. I understand there are certain percentage allocations for each of the criterias for open space, historic preservation, and affordable housing. One of my requests would be to reevaluate the percentage currently for affordable housing and put forward over a proposal for the next 3 years, so that we could potentially increase that to build up a capital reserve in of the affordable housing account. So we're prepared once we are in a position for, selecting a property, getting it before town meeting. There are going to be certain actions that are going to happen quickly. And if we prepare ourselves properly, that account will already have the capital reserves necessary for us to complete some of those activities.
That's an interesting prospect. I wonder what the thinking is on the concept of the housing trust, which could be the proper mechanism.
One of the mechanisms, right? Be able to provide seed money to the fund by transferring it into the housing trust, so the housing trust can manage some of the heavy lifting around a affordable housing project, which the CPC would not be able to. So but we need to build up the capital reserves, and this is not a long-term effort. Obviously, it's a short-term effort to start with the seed funding. Then we can reduce the percentage, but I think in the next 3 to 5 years, we probably need to start saving more to be prepared. And then, as we move towards more, as the town moves towards more grant identification of affordable housing with the state, once we have a site selected, then those monies would also go into the trust, and the trust would be administering those funds as the project continues.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just ask this question, and I don't know if anyone has the historical knowledge on this, but when we did the Spindrift, does anyone recall how that development project came about, whether it was funding through the state or the federal government, and how the funds were managed for that? CPC wasn't, I don't think CPC was around then, because that was like a 1980s, like late 80s, early 90s project.
That's absolutely correct. Let me ask, is Dave Wilson, do you happen to have any knowledge of that? As a member of the Housing Authority?
I know that the project started in 1981, and it was completed in 82. And I understand that the state came to the town looking for affordable housing in Nahant, and the town gave the housing authority the building, the JT Wilson for their affordable housing.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you, Dave.
Yep.
So we may be in a similar situation with some of the opportunity sites.
Mhm.
And we would, partner with the housing authority, to say maybe some of it would be allocated towards to support low income housing, while a larger portion addresses some of the other housing needs. So anything could happen. Again, there are still a lot of analysis that needs to be done. But just trying to understand, as we move forward, these are things that we're going to continually roadmap till we get to the final opportunity site that we present at town meeting.
So this is an interesting concept of building the reserve, and I would have to do some research to figure out whether that's possible without, a formal grant. Well, there'd have to be a formal grant and approval process by the town meeting. I think if there was the mechanism of the housing trust, that would actually be a logical way of doing that. But short of creating a housing trust, which, may take some time, I will have to do some research to see whether your request or your concept can be accommodated.
Okay. Hey, I want to just acknowledge Josh Antrim's question in the chat. He
Yes,
asked,
I'm happy to do that. Thank you.
Okay,
I'm
good.
looking at it now. Yes, I do have the affordable housing design guidelines. You do too at Town Hall. There is a large box of material. It was previously kept in the town administrator's office, but the guidelines were prepared with Goody Clancy as the consultant, and I can dig up my copy of the materials, because the one thing I offer is longevity. I've been on this committee forever, like a dinosaur. But yeah. And that was funded with community preservation. That was probably in 2000. I can look it up, but it was probably in 2005 or 6.
All right, thanks. That might be a nice starting point, or, document to reference. We decided we needed it again. Thanks.
Yeah, I certainly can do that, Josh. Yeah. But, that was really specific for that site. And I do think specificity for the sites in question really needs to be considered. I think it's hard to do the overall. You might be able to do some overall design guidelines, but each of these locations, these opportunity locations, really has specific topographical features, natural features, nature, neighbors and so on, that really should be taken into account. Other questions and thoughts? Michelle, you've certainly brought up a couple of very good points. I'm peering into the screen because one peers into the screens these days to see if there's other people who have hands raised or questions.
Can I ask another question, Lynn? Nancy?
Sure.
So, is the plan that would, I think it's important what you said about each site being considered in and of itself. I'm sort of alarmed at so much of the new construction around town, like all looking the same. There seems to be a sort of, I don't know, just sort of is all in the same style and over and over the same thing. Is that something that would be part of the designation, or is that too specific for what you'd be talking about? If you look at, say, the stuff that's being used for short-term rentals and stuff, that seems to pop up all over the place. There's a sameness about it that.
Yeah, I think there's two different points that are being raised here. I think there's individual single-family homes that are being transformed or created in a certain way. You know, if there were, for instance, historic district guidelines, there would be a process of reviewing those projects. That's why the design guidelines, I think, should be really specific to the sites in question. So you can, I guess, think about, you can think about the projects being contextual to the neighborhood and the topography involved.
And would there probably need to be zoning changes in areas to create different possibilities that may not be allowed or zoned for it now?
Well, Michelle will probably quickly jump in on this, but in fact, part of what is part of the study, and it may be separated into a separate portion of the study, it had to do with responding to a state mandate to encourage greater density in relation to public transportation opportunities. It's called 3A. You might have heard about it and read about it. And I think that at this point, there's been a lot of public response or community response to the draft plan in question. And perhaps there's going to be some consideration of separating the zoning density part of this from the affordable housing study. Michelle, have I just, stepped into a mud puddle there?
No, it's fine. So the work of the Housing Production Plan Committee has two parts. One is the housing plan, and then the second project is 3A compliance. And 3A compliance will involve creating a new bylaw or bylaws that will allow for increased density in certain locations in town, whether we create districts or do a single overlay. But the density requirement is to be able to build by right. So what we can do as part of that as a community is tell the state, yes, we support the build by right under 3A. However, it has to be in certain districts in town. So, if you think about locations that may be very crowded, may have one time been lots of summer homes or had multifamilies that converted to single families, or vice versa. We want to make sure it's locations where, there's plenty of off-street parking. Emergency vehicles can get down there. It's accessible by obviously the T as well. And it fits within the characteristics of the town. There's opportunity where some of these very large estate style homes could be divided into a multifamily type of living, 2 condos, 3 condos, depending on square footage. Also, if a home has, say, an acre and they want to divide their lot and put a multifamily home on it for passive income, it's an opportunity there as well. And it doesn't adversely impact the neighborhood. So some of the things that we'll be talking about next year as the committee furthers along, compliance with that state mandate is 2025. So the committee will be working with MAPC to understand what opportunities there would be available within the community, whether, again, if it's an single overlay district, or creating multiple districts where it makes sense. And then what we will do is put together a single bylaw or multiple bylaws to put before the town. We'll probably likely run the same type of community input sessions that we did in person. And once those proposed bylaws are at a state, they will go to the planning board. And as part of the planning board's process, they will hold public hearings again on those bylaws. So we will have them ready and staged for the 2025 annual town meeting. However, depending on our timeline, and if we are prudent, maybe we do a special town meeting later in the fall of 2024 and not wait till 2025 because of the timeline to achieve compliance in 2025. You know, we want to also plan for any contingency that comes up. So just outward thoughts there. Still much that needs to be socialized with my committee, but those are possible activities that could happen. But definitely the committee will be working on 3A and proposed bylaws to present to the town.
So there's a distinction between the zoning changes and then encouraging affordable housing. So, and providing, you know, the ways to achieve that. Now, if you look at the history of Nahant, which of course I do, because that's what my interest is, you know, you look at the Edge Hill, that was a summer hotel. And what is it now? You know, it's multiple dwellings. So that's the kind of, if you think about, you know, the Nahant was not all single family houses on individual lots. It was large estate, but we still have the vestiges of large parcels of property. But we can also look around and we see where the front lawns of former, you know, large properties were then subdivided and houses built. And that development pattern, I think, is something that we're using as a guide to thinking about how we actually give opportunities today. It doesn't have to be 16 stories. It can be, you know, story and a half, 2 stories. It can be contextual. If, you know, it feels like it's part of the neighborhood. And that should be the goal. Other comments and questions? I'm just looking at the chat. Nothing new so far. I think for the applicants who are sort of working on their applications now, we actually, help me, Paul, do we have meetings scheduled coming up?
I don't think we have. No, I don't think so.
So what I would encourage applicants, if they have got questions, to send them to me. If I think that we can solve this without having a meeting, I will attempt to do that, but otherwise I'll call a meeting and then we'll have an interim so we can review your in-process application. Otherwise, the applications, once they come in, we've had a history of then meeting with people and then refining and developing them further along the way. And that collaborative process, I think, has been pretty successful. No other hands raised? Any committee members? Barbara, any further comments for tonight? Barbara?
You're muted, my dear.
Got it. I would like to say that Michelle gave an excellent, very detailed presentation about the Housing Production Committee plans and to FinCom. And there is a lot there to be learned. And Lynn, you're also specifying ways in which different sites and contexts, and there are many, many lenses that I can tell from the presentation that I heard before, that all of those different, you know, threads and lenses are being considered. And it's a big deal. I mean, you're right. I mean, Michelle is just doing an amazing piece of work. And every time you think, oh, well, this might be a direction, then it's like, oh, you know, there's another way to think about it. So it's very useful to have the design perspective that you've got and that CPC has had. So it's a very complicated, super important process that's being undertaken. And it's great that CPC has got this major role. And I like the idea. I mean, I don't know about, you're talking about maybe getting some kind of a trust or whatever set up, but Michelle's request that there might be, because the housing has not been in the years that housing, as you said, Lynn, has not been a big part, right?
It's been a part, but
but not a big part. And so I think Michelle's idea of thinking about ways maybe to expand, and I realized I'm not on the committee, but I heard that. Because this is a big issue that's going forward. And CPC's role and funding is very important. So thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Lynn, and thank you, CPC. And we're eager to hear more on FinCom.
Yeah, the big takeaway I have from the questions raised by Michelle as to whether we can look at, the concept of accumulating a reserve,
right?
A greater reserve for affordable housing. And I'm going to have to, my avenue, I should just tell you, the avenue that I would use to consider this is to reach out to the Community Preservation Coalition, Stuart Saginaw, who is the director, and say, and he keeps anyone who's listening to this, if you are curious about community preservation statewide, go onto the coalition website. It is packed. Every grant that has ever been given anywhere in the state is recorded there. And so they are really Stuart and his team are the go-to for questions of this sort, because we want to make sure that when we are considering a grant, that it is actually allowable under the legislation that set community preservation up many years ago. So that's something that I'm going to be following up with. I suspect I'm probably going to be calling a meeting of the Community Preservation Committee in the next period of time so that we can actually hear, I can respond to share what I'm learning, but also hear from members of the committee as they've really dug into the housing production plan draft and have any questions, because I do feel that community preservation is going to be an important partner in achieving some of the goals set forth by that plan. I won't be asking a quiz, committee members, but you really, 144 pages, it's a bit of light reading.
Right.
But it's important. Other comments? Questions? Okay. All right. Well, I will, at this point, since I have no one else sort of, knocking at the door, will say that I appreciate your participation here tonight. And I don't know, since this is a formal meeting and we have a quorum, I think I really do need to look for a person to make a proposal to adjourn the meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Dave.
I will second it, Nancy.
Okay. Okay, very good. Committee members, roll call vote. Nancy.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
Well, we're adjourned for tonight.
Thank you, Lynn.
Food for thought, and we'll be sort of following up with some of the points that have been raised tonight. But thank you very much. Barbara, always glad to see you. Thank you for attending.
This is really important, the connections. And one of the things I'll just say, and we're adjourned, so this is just a little comment. One of the points that Michelle made at our meeting was finding ways of having more cross-committee communication. And the idea, for instance, that And Austin, this is something, I don't know if you were at our meeting too, the idea that there might be, you know, at some points during the year, meetings that would be committee chairs and department chairs getting together, because we don't really have that kind of formal. I mean, I was a department chair, and we used to have department chair meeting when I was out of college. We used to have department chair meetings regularly.
Mhm.
So, and then we would have meetings with administrative officers as well. And it was a very important, productive way to know how we could collaborate and share. And Michelle brought up the idea of having that be something that the town should institutionalize a bit more. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you
Yes.
do that, Austin? Do you guys meet?
Tony does hold department head meetings. There's one tomorrow morning.
Uh-huh.
They happen on the first and third Tuesdays of the month.
So would it be helpful, do you think? If folks want to leave, I'm just curious because it came up at our meeting. So would it be helpful? Do you think, Austin, if the chairs, say like Lynn, Bob Vanderslice from FinCom, some of the other, Michelle, were to attend some of those meetings, or?
I think that would be a question for Tony or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Michelle
idea.
brought it up to Tony. So now I'm just learning more about what meetings sort of processes are in place. That was really what I was asking.
Sure. Yeah.
So you meet, how often did you say?
It's scheduled for twice a month. Yeah, the first and third Tuesday of the month.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Learning more.
Okay, very
Thank
good.
you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Good
Thank
night.
you all. See you later.